tare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om tare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om tare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om tare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Lama Live. At Tara Mandala, we are committed to being a welcoming, open, and safe community for practitioners and students of all cultures and every race, religion, gender, sexuality, age, ability, and circumstance. I'm Dr. Jean Carroll, joining you live from Sussex, England, and I'm so glad you're here for today's conversation with Chögé Bridget and Chögé Lisa Erickson, co-directors of the Mandala Method Program at Tara Mandala. Today, Bridget and Lisa will guide us into a powerful exploration of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine in Tibetan Buddhism, and how understanding and working with them independently and together can help restore balance, strength, and compassion. We'll also be introduced to the 5 wisdom families, explore lost masculine wisdom archetypes, and experience a guided mandala meditation. So let's take a moment to settle in, open our hearts, and warmly welcome Chögé Bridget and Chögé Lisa Erickson.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here. So let's take a minute to just settle in and arrive here in this practice space, in this Dharma space. So if you'd like to shut your eyes or lower your gaze, maybe taking a couple of mindfully deep breaths. You might feel the weight of your body on your chair or cushion. And just notice what is stirring in you. Maybe there's some thoughts or content of what you were doing just before this. Maybe you notice anticipation of what is to come. And in this place, you might begin to connect with your heart and notice what drew you to be here today. What's your intention to be here today in this space? And as you are connected to your heart, this intention for yourself, beginning to recognize that everyone in your household or neighborhood or city also is wishing for benefit to themselves, is wishing for happiness. All beings are wishing to be happy and to be free from suffering. And so from this, you might start to touch on bodhicitta, or the awakened heart, the open heart, and set an intention, a motivation that this time we spend together today is of great benefit to all sentient beings without one exception. Something that is so needed in the world is this open-hearted intention. Thank you so much. So opening your eyes or coming back if you're here. And also, whenever we begin sessions, Lisa and I in the Mandala Method, I really like to take a moment to just acknowledge the land, the place that we're on, take a moment possibly to have a bow of gratitude to the seen and unseen beings, the stewards of the land, those who have protected the land and taken care of it throughout time, Indigenous people, and also all of our teachers, both our Dharma teachers, those who have supported us through personal realization, and maybe those in our family, people who have given their energy and their compassion to make it so that we can be here today to actually sit together in this contemplative space. Recognizing our interconnectedness and just feeling gratitude. So, welcome Chögé Lisa. It's so nice to be with you in this context here on Lama Live. And Lisa and I are the co-directors of the Mandala Method at Tara Mandala. And the Mandala Method was developed by Lama Tsultrim Alioni, and it's actually 3 core retreats. And we also have a pathway of professional certification. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So these 3 core retreats are the Mandala of the Wisdom Dakinis, connecting with the fierce feminine energy, the Mandala of the Buddhas, the Dhyani Buddhas, which is the peaceful masculine energy, and then the Yabyu Mandala, a mandala of the union of masculine and feminine. So I will start today and speak a bit first on what is the masculine and feminine principle in Tibetan Buddhism. So the first thing to note is that the masculine are not necessarily connected to biological sex or gender. These should really be thought of as two energies that all human beings have, 2 energies. And also that they represent the non-dual nature of mind. So the feminine principle in Tibetan Buddhism is associated with wisdom, prajna or sherab. And it's wisdom and emptiness or spaciousness. And when we talk about emptiness, it's not void. It's actually the way that space itself is empty, meaning that it is pregnant. It's often called the pregnant zero, or the womb of totality, that which brings forth, or it could bring forth anything. And I often like to think about actual space, like outer space, or the space that's here. And space is so incredible because it holds the potential for anything to arise. Absolutely anything can arise in space if the causes and conditions are there. There's no rules, that say purple things can't arise in space, right? If there's the causes and conditions, it arises. And I often think about just the myriad of galaxies and different worlds that we've discovered, different types of stars and black holes, and just the spontaneity of the arisings from the ground of being, from this pregnant zero. So that's the feminine. The feminine principle is wisdom and emptiness. And the masculine principle in Tibetan Buddhism is associated with skillful means and compassionate action. And it's actually that which arises from the space, that arises from the ground, that it's naturally compassionate and is active, the dynamic expression. And so this is associated or called skillful means, upaya, or tab in Tibetan. And so when these 2 are together, this is the non-dual nature of mind, the true nature of mind. And the wisdom of what Lama Tsultrim has developed with these different practices is that in each of these mandalas, we actually can work with the feminine, the masculine, and the union, the non-dual aspect. And so one thing to kind of add to this is that while these are not tied to biological sex or gender, right? It's two complementary energies existing in all people. We happen to live in a very heteronormative, gendered world, right? Like the toy aisle that I see with my children is still very pink and blue, and princesses and monster trucks. The razors for men are kind of look like a mountaineering expedition, and the women are the women's razors in the aisle are soft and pink and purple, and there's this true gendered aspect to the world we live in, even though it's a construct. And so these practices, the fierce feminine, the sacred masculine, and then the union of the two, actually are a skillful means, a way to work with and untangle, liberate possibly our own gender conditioning. So Lama Tsultrim, chose to work with the fierce feminine in the Dakini Mandala. And why the fierce feminine? Lama Tsultrim writes about this in Women of Wisdom, if you'd like to know more. But, she really identified that the fierce feminine had kind of been relegated to the shadows in our society, that the kind of feminine ideal was the Madonna, the more subservient woman, the overlays from our society, which especially is happening now, like the trad wife, the woman who receives the negative male behavior and doesn't really say anything, doesn't happen to have good boundaries. It's not easy to stand up to injustice or abuse. And in some ways, it's like my protecting my role as your right hand, your subservient right hand. I'm better here taking it than off on my own, this type of idea. It's very complex to get into, and of course, people's experience varies across, different countries and race and things like this, and so that should be taken into account. But instead of it being this Madonna subservient, peaceful feminine, which of course is wonderful, that had been idealized. So Lama Tsultrim wanted to bring forth the fierce feminine. And so in the Dakini Mandala, we see these Dakinis, these archetypes of the fierce feminine, and they are dancing. They're in the sky. They're naked, and they have so much wisdom. They're bursting in wisdom flames, and they hold a knife that does what? It cuts through ego clinging. It is fierce clarity. It stands up to injustice. And her recognition was really needing to bring forth and give an opportunity for people in the world to develop this energetic quality. And so that's one of the things that is the technology or the transformative power of the Dakini practice. And of course, we're working within the context of a mandala, which I'd love to talk about more, but is this transformative sacred container where both challenges and wisdom, or encumberments and wisdom, are present and can be transformed. And in the Mandala Method practices, we actually are working with embodiment. So we are visualizing ourselves as the Dakini or the Buddha, which I'll talk about in a moment, using seed syllables, sound, vibration, light, all of these things that actually science is really beginning to study, the power of guided imagery and the power of imagination, really. There's studies now about how the mind recognizes imagined experiences as similar to real experiences. And so these are all the kind of technologies in the practice. And then when we get over to the sacred masculine, thinking of it as an energy, not something connected to gender, it's the peaceful masculine that we're working with. And so, as is very evident today, the masculine right now is out of balance. We haven't cultivated enough of this peaceful, aspect of the masculine. So we see many, sadly, examples of the masculine out of balance today, where it's power over, domination, control, cruelty, not recognizing the impact of our actions on others, a real lack of compassion. And so in the peaceful masculine mandala, we have the 5 Buddhas of the 5 Buddha families seated in a mandala, and they're actually all seated. They're grounded. They are rooted and embodying this peaceful expression of masculine energy that is immovable, protective without dominating. And then we get a chance going through these practices and doing this practice to actually live in what does that feel like in our bodies. And part of the Mandala method is that we do these Mandala meditation practices where we actually sound seed syllables and manifest ourselves as these mandalas, these 5, we'll show a picture in a little bit, but these 5 Buddha families and 5 Buddhas. And then after the practice, there's actually what we call enhancement practices, where we begin to work with challenges in real life, such as, I've been having fights with my husband about who does more in the house with our children, very common, division of labor. And I'm feeling really angry. So I might work with that as the material for an enhancement practice, and to work with the Vajra family. We're going to talk a little bit about how each family has is associated with an emotion, an encumbered or difficult emotion, and the wisdom it transforms into. So I'm going to bring Lisa back on for a minute. And, Lisa, I know one of the things that we wanted to talk about was just our personal experience going through these different mandalas and how it works on us. And that, to name it explicitly, there's this really spiritual Vajrayana practice that we're doing, this real, it's our path to enlightenment, this practice. And at the same time, part of what's included is actually working with daily life, actually working with what's going on in my marriage, what's going on in my life, what's going on with my relationship with my mother or you or teacher. And so that's included. And that the technology of the practice is actually working with gender conditioning. And yeah, so I know you were going to share a bit, but can you maybe talk about what it was like for you to do the feminine practices and then do the masculine practices? Love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bridget, for that great introduction covering all of that. Yeah, really, I think the power of these Mandala Method practices, and of so much of what we do at Tara Mandala, is this merging of these formal Vajrayana practices with this personal psychological work. And I really have experienced that as part of Magyu. These Mandala practices are part of the Magyu lineage program at Tara Mandala. And like a lot of people, when I first came to Tara Mandala, I really came for the sacred feminine. I was seeking feminine models, feminine teachers, more representation within the spiritual world of the female embodied, and also at a daily level. And my first practices were like Prajnaparamita and Green Tara, embodying the feminine. And I was also at this point in my life where I was transitioning my career, and I had my twins were about 1 year old. They're now 19. So I had 3 young children because I had twins after having my daughter 19 months before that. So before that, I had spent years working in a very masculine tech culture as one of the few women often in my environment. And I was segueing out of that and was now at home with 3 young kids. And this is the point at which I began the Dakini Mandala practices. And this fierce feminine and the psychological work that I was doing really brought out all of these resentments and anger for me to work with that I didn't really realize I was holding, right? The ways I had felt dismissed or silenced really at work, the ways I had also had to kind of take on this dysfunctional masculine of achievement and pushing and just to get anything done, right, within that culture. But then now at home with 3 kids, feeling a little lost. Like I loved being a mother and I loved my kids, but feeling like some part of my identity, I felt disempowered some way. It didn't feel like an empowered form. So that fierce feminine Dakini mandala was really, I was working with a lot of that. I was also noticing the gender conditioning because I had boy-girl twins, everything you were talking about, the toy aisle. When you have twins, you just notice right away how differently they are treated when they express emotion, the different toys they get, the different Halloween costumes, right? That right from the start that send different signals. So this is what I'm working with in Dakini Mandala, and it was very rich. It was very empowering. The Dakinis, you can maybe see them a little bit behind me, are dancing, they're moving, they're surrounded by wisdom flames. And then it was time for me to move on to the Buddha Mandala practice, the sacred masculine, the peaceful masculine. And as you said, we're embodying these deities. And I had a real aversion, a resistance. I didn't want to move on to Buddha Mandala. I didn't want to embody the masculine. And so I really started to work with why? What is this resistance? And I realized I was still holding on to this idea that there is nothing positive in the masculine, right? And so what that really meant then is I couldn't integrate the masculine in a healthy way within myself. So as I move through the Buddha Mandala, doing this personal work around kind of the wounded masculine in myself, the dysfunctional masculine I'd experienced outside of me, this gender imbalance and conditioning, I really started to experience this integration, this peaceful feeling in myself, this stability and feeling of inner safety and protectedness as source from within. And I think that's really the power of moving through these. These energies we're awakening to them within us, and it's nothing to do with what body we're in or how we identify.
Yeah, it's so powerful to hear. And, you know, it reminds me, and you and I've talked about this before, of, you know, the Swiss psychologist Jung really brought forth this idea that, you know, before it was more tied to gender. And I know there are Jungian scholars now who don't do that. But this idea that within each of us, there is like the undeveloped part that's associated with the other gender. So the anima in men, meaning, you know, typically, you know, it would be the feeling sense, relatedness, emotion, intuition. Typically in our culture, that's not kind of developed in men from the beginning, you know, and of course there are embodied men and, you know, trans and non-binary folks who probably have that, but that this idea that there are certain qualities in each of us that are not fully developed, you know, and traditionally the animus in woman was representing logos or reason, assertiveness, and that, you know, hadn't been developed. And so often I remember Lama, you know, talking about that this also tracks, these practices track with this with Jung's idea that the goal of individuation is to integrate these inner opposites, to be able to bring them into balance with one another. And that these practices really give us a way to do that. A skillful means tangible in. And I'm so interested, could you say more about your resistance to embodying the masculine? How'd you work through that? Or what did you do to, I guess, become aware of and move through that experience?
Yeah. Well, I have a wonderful Kalyana Mitra in my Magyu program, Dorje Lopez Charlotta. So we actually talked about this.
Yeah.
And she was like, bring this into your practice, you know, bring this feeling of aversion, which is one of the encumberments you work with in the 5 families of the Buddhas. Work with, do a journey with a Buddha, right? Another one of these practices, and ask, why am I experiencing this aversion? What's forth? Because these are all these different skillful means, going back to upaya, right? Mapped to the masculine, different skillful means for bringing forth what that resistance was. And it really was still about this part of me only associating the masculine with harm, even though I was in a loving marriage, right? And
Mhm.
even though I had a son, right? And it
Mhm.
was interesting that split.
Mhm.
And I noticed how it showed up in my parenting too, and the conditioning that the kids, as I watched them, how they were treated by the world. There was a lot of different themes around that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what's bringing this to mind is, it's almost like we need things that shine the light on our shadows.
Right.
And that in one context, there's a lot of shadows around how we relate to gender, and even for folks who either don't identify with their, biological sex or their gender at birth, the energies are still here to bring into balance, and like, how do we do that? Right. And so what I'm hearing and remembering from my own work is how these practices shine a light on what I might not be aware of in that area, and when you and I were having a prep call about this, we were talking about different things we'd experienced. And for me, one of the things that came out in working with the masculine is the conditioning of how I always thought the masculine was there to take care of me, and kind of this attachment, maybe wound with the feminine or something like that, where I wanted my husband to be the one to make the money or to take care of me. And really the shift to trusting my own reliability or my own inner protector, or the one who's going to figure it out while being in relationship, right? Not to become the one who's now dominant and you're subservient to me, right? But in balance.
Yeah.
And I noticed too, and maybe you can share a bit about your relationship, but I also noticed how if I'm out of balance, that those who I'm in relationship to are also, I perpetuate the imbalance in them, right? We often, end up with people in relationship where they're out of balance in one way, we're out of balance in another. And that fits really nicely in our smelly nest, so just being the evolution, not only of, for me, but also of the relationship, and then the family, and then the community. And, this is bringing to mind how practice is activism. We have to clean up this inner world, balance the feminine, masculine here. And like, that changes the world, right? Like, that actually shifts this net, this interconnected net.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the conversation always going on, right? Within feminism and within different movements in our world. There needs to be a focus, obviously, on allowing disenfranchised or marginalized individuals, including women, to be in structures of power, right? But then there's another conversation to be had about what do those structures of power represent, right? And you and I were also talking about how we internalize. Both of us are eldest children who were very achievement oriented, and at a certain point, it's like that's your identity. So when I stepped away from that career that I had spent a lot of time building, there was this loss of a sense of identity. And that was really based on a very masculine model, And
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just something you said triggered me. I wanted to tell the story about the twins when they were both little, playing soccer, like 5 years old, boy, girl, separate teams, right? And going to one game, and one of the little boys falls down, and everyone is like, "Oh, you're fine, get up, you're fine," right? And then in the other game, the little girl falls down, and everyone gathers around her. We stop the game. Are you okay? Et cetera, et cetera. These messages that we receive, right? Okay, as a girl, everybody's job is to take care of each other, right? As a boy, push aside your emotion and move on, right? And so then we're really told right from the start which energies we're allowed to embody and which not. And it gets very complicated. And really, this whole path is about allowing yourself to embody all of it. Safety within yourself, protection within yourself, emotional vulnerability, all of it is there.
Right. And then held within the mandala of transformation, right? The idea of the mandala is, it's a circle with a center. It's a sacred container of essence. And the view of these practices and of Vajrayana is that the messy, the stinky, the annoying, the painful isn't something to be removed and like, get it out of here, which, if we're honest, is our first impulse, right? When we're suffering or experiencing discomfort. right? It's basically, I like it, I don't like it, let's get it out of here. But actually, the Vajrayana vehicle and the technology of these practices is actually we're going to take that and transform it. Really understand the stuff that is smelly or painful or messy in my relationship or inside of me. Where is wisdom not present? Where is love not present? How can it be transformed into its wisdom expression? And then it's the teacher, and so I know one example you and I talk about. So there's the 5 families, maybe I'll mention them. I know we're going to do this practice later. In the center of the mandala is the Buddha family, which is associated with spacing out, depression, marijuana comes up, like
it's encumbered form, and it's encumbered form.
Encumbered form, yes. The encumbered form is, just totally spacing out, scrolling, like dissociating, numbing, and that's the encumbered form. And that when it transforms, when it's in its wisdom form, it's actually spaciness becomes spaciousness, all-encompassing space, the wisdom of all-encompassing space. So that same kind of fuzzy spaciousness actually becomes an inner spaciousness we can just rest in. And there's presence and there's awareness. So the color associated with the color white. And then in the east is the Vajra family. It's blue, and it's associated with anger or aggression. And that transforms into clarity. And you and I talk about this one a lot, of how, I don't know if you want to give an example, if you have one, but I'll maybe just say that for me, this has been such a good teacher to integrate, anger, not as something that's bad or I'm being bad, but actually, wait, there's a message here, right? This is my boundary. And in its wisdom form, it's just clarity. It's just a no, as opposed to reactivity, right? And what about you? How's anger or the Vajra family shown up?
Yeah, anger is something we all work with, I think, especially in personal relationships. And this was it's a big one for me. And really that anger is that message. And how can you move from that place of reactivity to respond? Mirror-like wisdom, the wisdom of that family is just seeing it clearly. So when you're triggered, you're in this encounter, someone says something, it hurts you in some way, your instinct is hurt back, right? And you're just caught in that cycle, right? If you have the tools to create that spaciousness just for a moment, whether it's a breath, or maybe it's working with the encounter afterwards through a tool, all of a sudden you see it just like a mirror reflects it, mirror-like wisdom, clarity. Oh, I said this, he said this, that triggered my feeling of insecurity. I decided I was going to hurt back. And you see, then he felt attacked, right? And then all of a sudden you just see it. You see it for what it is, this dynamic. And you can drop that. And then you choose what's the best way to move forward, right? And that's arising from your wisdom.
Yeah. Well, and it feels so important today in this moment in time, especially in the United States, to really be connected to our anger in a healthy way. That, being angry about what's happening in the country for me is a clarity. Like, it goes against my values. It goes against compassion. It goes against wisdom. And, if I'm really personally, if I'm really like stuck and hooked in that, I'm not very effective. I actually go into Buddha. I feel depressed. I feel angry. I start to generate hate and resentment and othering in me, right? I'm just caught. I'm in samsara. I can't really be of benefit as an activist, as a mother, right? But if I take that and I really am able to use the tools and sit with my anger about what's happening, well, that actually moves me into sadness. It moves me into grief, moves me into clarity. And then I can be pretty decisive. Like, I want to show up in this way. I want to take this action. I want to talk about it with my friends and family or, community this way. And there's so much more clarity, right? Of how to engage.
Well, and exactly what you're talking about with anger, what's so important is it's not excluded. Because I think the other thing that can come up is this idea that being spiritual, anger is somehow exiled, right? But no, there's a place for anger. It is showing you where your boundary is, where your limit is. It's showing you a message of how you're feeling. There's usually other feelings underneath. Nothing is excluded when you're working with the mandala. It's all a pathway to wisdom. It's all entwined. It's this container for experiencing the whole world, external and internal, as a pure expression, right?
Yeah.
Light. Yeah.
Absolutely. So maybe we finish the mandala. So then coming around to the Ratna family. The Ratna family is yellow. It's associated with the encumberment of pride, which is often associated with insecurity, truly, and unworthiness, worthlessness, which puffs itself up into pride. And in its wisdom form is equanimity, is this kind of universal dignity. Or as I really like to think about it, like imagine we are all royalty. Like every single person is a king and a queen, or a non-binary ruler of great dignity and care, and that we are that there's that much value in everyone, no above and below. And then we come around in the West to Padma, red desire. Do you want to talk a little bit about Padma? What would you say?
Sure. Yeah. It's like dysfunctional attachment. Like you have to have it, and you really, you get that moment of satiation, which of course always fades, but you feel like that's the only thing that will make you happy, and you keep pursuing it. And it may be external. It could be more like validation, right? It could be more like admiration. You're just constantly grasping for it. But then the wisdom is discernment, this ability to really see the dynamic for what it is. And in a way to really experience love as opposed to desire. And this feeling of just connecting as whole, not in terms of need and fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk about addiction lives there, and insatiability, attachment wounding. Yeah. And then karma in the north, the green. Do you want to keep going? Keep going.
Sure. I'll do karma, which we are both very, we both know karma well. Yeah. Well, in the busyness form. So one form is that doing, really being a doer, but it can be dysfunctional, right? To the point where doing is an escapism, or doing is a control thing, an overwhelm, always being in stress. The traditional encumberment here is named as jealousy. And it's really like you're always in comparison. You never feel like you're doing enough in comparison to others. So we have a lot of this in our culture, right? This encumberment. But then the wisdom is all accomplishing wisdom, or as Lama likes to sometimes call it, already accomplished. Like really, what does it feel like if it's already done? Can you move through your day and your tasks feeling like it's already done, that you're just present fully in that moment? And really, to me, this connects me to, your motivation, right? Just moving through, doing each thing the best you can from a pure place, already accomplished. Yeah,
absolutely. And so these 5 families exist in all Tibetan Buddhist mandalas. I don't know if we want to show a picture. We have a couple of pictures. It's okay. You can kind of put up what you have, and we were going to talk about, this is great.
Buddha mandala. Yeah. And then I can move into the practice too.
Yeah. This is the Buddha mandala. So you can see the 5 Buddhas of the 5 colors. And I think there was one picture before that's like a traditional Tibetan Buddhist Thangka mandala. We could just show it for a minute to see the structure. Yeah. So, this is on the ceiling of the temple at Tara Mandala. And if you look at this, you can see that there are 4 quadrants, those 4 colors and a center inside the mandala, and it's within a circle. So we have each of the families, and each of the families, it's so interesting. We really get into this in the practices, but are associated with symbols. You can see the symbols here. They're associated with symbols. They're associated with colors, directions, seasons, landscapes, architecture. Lama has a beautiful teaching that she's done that we talk about, like what happens if a Padma goes to a party, or a Vajra person goes to a party. So it's a really interesting framework to see both our inner world, our relationships, and our outer world. And anything else you want to say, Chögé Lisa, about just the structure of the mandala?
No, I mean, its brilliance just continues to be revealed to me, really, as you go deeper and deeper in terms of every phenomena that's arising, whether you can perceive it as outside you or inside you, is an expression of one of these families in the mandala. And so it's really, again, coming back to that idea, it's all held in the mandala. It is that container, and it's a way of categorizing that. And that means that there is this enlightened wisdom within every single phenomena arising.
Yeah. And so thank you. Yes, I think we can see the Buddha mandala now. And I just took a quick glance at the comments, Lisa, and we had some people just affirming what we were saying, that, you know, cis men are also vulnerable. And that's a huge social issue for compassionate mindfulness. Another person, Alex, saying, when we're out of balance, we perpetuate that in another. Yes, well said. And so absolutely, you know, and I think that
these gender conditioning box everyone in.
They box absolutely everyone in. And in many ways, you know, trans and non-binary folks are leading the way in actually breaking this down in a kind of in daily life, like outside of Buddhism, kind of saying, just because I've been born in this body, why do I have to wear these clothes? Or can't I wear makeup? Or Alok Menon comes to mind, and thank you, Alok, for all of your work, but about breaking down this type of conditioning. And so what's so interesting is that because from a Tibetan Buddhist view, gender is a construct. It is already another form or aspect that is empty. It's kind of built in here that the eventual or potential dissolution of that construct, you know. So Lisa, I wanted to hand it over to you, and please lead us in this practice today about the 5 Buddhas, and maybe introduce us a bit to what we're looking at.
Yeah. So this is the Buddha mandala as we work with it in the mandala of the 5 Buddhas in the Mandala Method. And we have white Vairocana in the middle, holding the Dharma Chakra mudra. We have blue Akshobhya, really would be in front of him in the earth touching mudra. And I'm going to walk you through these mudras, and we're going to sound seed syllables and give you a moment to really try to feel the vibration of each of these families in wisdom form. Behind Vairocana, we have, to the right, we have golden yellow Ratnasambhava in the bestowing mudra. Behind him, we have red Amitabha in the meditation mudra. And to Vairocana's left, we have green Amagasiti in the fearlessness mudra. And there's a lot more I could say here. Each of them is held up by a throne with animals that are symbolic. And in this picture, we also have Machigladran and Prajnaparamita above it on this particular tanka. And in the actual Sacred Masculine Retreat, Mandala of the Sacred Masculine that we have coming up, you really go into what's the meaning of these mudras and these animal thrones, and also the skandhas. We've been talking about emotional obscurations, but each family is also associated with form, perception, feeling, etc. So you go into the skandhas and you work with those as well. So what we're going to do now is just sound the Buddha seed syllable as it's represented in this practice once. And I'll also guide you in holding the mudra if you would like. And I'd like to invite you to imagine your body is filling with the color of light of the family that we're doing. And I'll name the wisdom associated with it. And however that comes forward with you, try to settle into this felt experience of that wisdom as sound, as light. Perhaps you're visualizing yourself as the Buddha. Perhaps you're just imagining your own body filled with light for now. The mudra also is optional. So let's start with Dharma Chakra mudra, the teaching mudra of Vairocana in the middle. We have, and you might want to take down the mandala. That might be hard for people to see me. Matt, thank you. So the Dharma Chakra mudra, your thumb and index fingers joined. And this is representing the Dharma wheel and the 3 jewels. And your right hand is facing out. Your left hand, sometimes it's tucked behind, sometimes it's underneath. Really, you hold this a little bit lower, but I'll hold it up here for you guys to see it. And the color of the Buddha family is white light in your body. And the seed syllable is Om. So I invite you to sound the seed syllable with me. And as you do so, imagine your body filled with white light. Hold the mudra if you'd like. And cultivate or settle into the wisdom of all-encompassing spaciousness. All-encompassing spaciousness, white light. Now the second reflection or refraction of enlightenment in the form of mirror-like wisdom. Imagine you're filled with blue light as we sound the seed syllable home. And the mudra is the earth-touching mudra. So your right hand is down in front of your right knee. As if you were sitting on the ground, you'd be touching the earth, and your left is in your lap, facing upward. Blue light fills your body. You are embodying mirror-like wisdom in the peaceful masculine form. Now the Ratna family, golden yellow light, the seed syllable tram, and you're turning your hand over for the bestowing mudra at your right knee. The wisdom is equanimity. Your body is full of golden yellow light. Your body is made of golden yellow light. You're the embodiment of equanimity as expressed in the peaceful masculine form. Moving to the Padma family, Amitabha. Your body's made of red light. The seed syllable is Hri. And the mudra is the meditation mudra in your lap. The wisdom is discernment. Made of red light, you embody the wisdom of discernment. Now completing the mandala, the karma family. The color is green. The seed syllable is ah. The mudra is the fearlessness mudra. Holding your hand here at your right or in front of your heart. Fearlessness, this protection feeling. The wisdom is all accomplishing wisdom, action, all accomplishing wisdom. Made of green light, you embody all accomplishing wisdom. It's already done. Thank you. Just a little taste, so much more to the full practice. You're moving in the directions of the mandala, feeling yourself held by these animal thrones, and yeah, really wonderful. So hopefully they gave you a little bit of a taste. And I want to bring Chögé Bridget back on. We're going to talk a little bit about, the upcoming retreat, the Mandala Method, and the certification that we now have.
Yeah, thank you so much for that embodied initiation, energetic practice. Something that you and I talk about a lot is how this is really an energy transmission. We're cultivating these energies within us. And again, so clearly not tied to gender, but that these are energetic states, these are vibrational fields, and that we can enter them. We can enter them through these colors, through these seed syllables. So let's see, we wanted to share, we have an upcoming retreat on the sacred masculine starting in October on the 17th. Is that correct, Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm teaching it, so I should know, but it's on the 17th, and we'll be meeting Fridays until November 7th for a couple of hours. I'm teaching that with Lopen Ellen Booth Church, who's really incredible. And if you're interested more and want to keep watching, she has a talk from a couple of months ago about the sacred masculine that's really wonderful. And if you are part of Tara Mandala and our Yana space, she's posted, she wrote an article about it that's really also quite wonderful. And so that's coming up, and we'll learn the Buddha Mandala practice, and we will also learn more things about the connections of this framework. The mandala is this template for wholeness. Lama Tsultrim often, one of my favorite quotes is that our spiritual intelligence is searching for wholeness. There's this movement toward awakening, compassion, coming into wholeness. And so we will talk more about the qualities of the Buddha Mandala, the skandhas and these animal thrones. And then we learn specific practices that really touch more of the psychological, that kind of use what's getting in the way of us experiencing the nature of mind or the ground of being. What's getting in the way? We can actually work with that. We can work with that very directly to reveal its wisdom nature. So grist for the mill, what's in the way is the way. We get to work with that stuff with other skillful means and practices. And so that will be happening. There's practice sessions. And I think we put it in the chat here if you're interested in that retreat. And then one of the things that Lisa and I have had the pleasure to do is to launch a professional certification program. So we've actually had 3 cohorts go through this, and this is for, anyone who works with clients. I'm a psychotherapist, a therapist in Seattle, Washington. Lisa is an energy worker living in LA and outside of LA. And we use this with our clients. And it's something, if you work with clients, we have had people who are life coaches, who are wellness and fitness coaches, people who do acupuncture, end of life care, hospice, people who work with like a local sangha or group. Anything else I'm missing of who it's for, Lisa?
Yeah, really anyone working one-on-one with someone.
Anybody who's working one-on-one with someone, especially, I would say energy workers and therapists. I'm looking at you. That's what Lisa and I do, and it's worked really well in our practices. And so through the certification program, you become certified to use many of the psycho-spiritual tools, the psychological tools that Lama Tsultrim has developed. Many have kind of Gestalt-based practices, ways to get in touch with these energies in our body or in our being that are in the shadow, and to bring it forth and to cultivate the feminine or the masculine or the union of the two, which we didn't talk about today. Lisa, is there anything else that we should mention about the certification program?
I think just in terms of the enhancement practices, how rich and diverse they are. They really are. You can find different methods for working with different people. There's working with drawing, actually drawing mandalas. There's sound and light practices that, like, similar to what we just did. There's things working with memory, there's active visualizations, there's working with the elements in nature. So I just think there's a lot. It's very accessible for people to work with Buddhist and non-Buddhist. There's a doorway in for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't really mention the elements today, but it is such an incredible part of the practice and something I know very deep and dear to both of our hearts. You know, each of the families are associated with an element. And so space, you probably heard through Buddha, Vajra is associated with water. And so there's these incredible practices to actually work with water. Ratna is earth, practices of working with earth, the generosity of the earth, the stability of the earth. Mother Earth, my goodness, she supports every step, gives us every drop of water and food. It's such a beautiful practice. And Padma is fire, of course, working with the element of fire in our lives. And karma is wind or air. So there are practices with each of these. And I think you mentioned everything else too, that's in the enhancement practices. Yeah.
But really helping you learn how to guide others in these, all the consideration, the challenges that arise, how to hold the container, all of these different components.
Yeah. So we wanted to open it up for the last few minutes. If anyone here who's here today has any questions. I did see one earlier, Lisa. I'll read it. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And thank you for being here. So I see from Alex here, I see a question. Could you clarify the direction of the left hand for the white Buddha family?
Oh, yeah, I went through that kind of quick because you do see it different ways. Sometimes you see it underneath, almost supporting. It's hard because it's lower down. And sometimes it's actually behind. And then I've seen versions where you're touching like this, which I think is more of the Hindu version. So really in our picture, it looks like this in our Buddha mandala. But I've also, so you're meeting it here. And in our picture, it looks, more like one is supporting the other. Yeah. So
in our tradition, yeah.
And then it's down, it just held down lower.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Dorothea. Oh, Alex couldn't see it in the video. Yeah. Yes. When we can go back and watch. Well, thank you all for being here. Those of you who are live or if you're watching. As is mentioned in some of the comments, if you have any questions, you can email mandalamethod@taramandala.org. And, thank you to everybody who's out there who's taken the mandala retreats. There's many, many people who are practicing these mandala retreats. We've had 3 cohorts go through. One's actually graduating this weekend. So people are beginning to use this in their professional practices. And the reason I'm mentioning this is I know that one of Lama Tsultrim's visions that she had was really that there would become a net of these Dakini mandalas all over the world. And for me, what comes up and why I want to mention that is that to not forget that we're all interconnected. I know that, right now, if you're in the United States or in other places, it is such a chaotic time. There is a lot of information and emotion and pain and there's suffering. There's so much going on. And so whatever it is for you in your life, whether it's Mandala Method or something else that can connect us to our own hearts, to connect us to nature, the universe, we are all interdependent. And so everybody who's here, your openness matters, your practice matters. It matters in our families, it matters in our communities, and to not miss that. Because I feel like it can be so easy to slide kind of into a Buddha insignificance, that we can't do anything. And at least from my view, I want to say that we can, and that all the conversations we have today, if there's even a drop of compassion or curiosity, it really matters. So that's my final words. Lisa, I'll pass it to you for you to sign off as well.
No, I think that was beautifully said, Bridget, and really just holding that in your heart, settling into your heart for a moment, noticing what you need to take care of yourself and others, because it's one allows for the other, right? That balance.
Yeah. So maybe taking a moment to dedicate the merit of our time together. And I see some questions coming in. Okay, maybe I'll slowly stop and just answer the question. So it's here, or maybe you can, Lisa. Could you briefly speak to the duration of the Mandala Method Program, as well as the path for certification? Yeah, we didn't mention that. So
yeah. To do all 3 mandalas, we are trying to offer them always within about a 16-month period. So you could move through them that quickly, but you could also spread them out and take, Buddha mandala the next round if you want more time. But you can do the entire thing in around 14 months. Certification, then, you really begin with the second mandala, the Buddha mandala, and then it's a year from that point. You do Yabgyum and you do some additional training. So if you start now with the Buddha mandala, you become certified about a year from now. If you have not yet done Dakini Mandala, there is also a self-paced course that Lama Tsultrim teaches based on her book, Wisdom Rising, that you can do concurrent with the Buddha Mandala course in order to do the certification now.
Yeah, and maybe it goes to emphasize that if you are really interested in doing this and want to do it now, you can join the Sacred Masculine Retreat and begin with a new cohort. We have a new cohort beginning in November. And so if you are somebody who either has already done all these practices and you're part of the Sangha and you're listening and you want to join, so we're starting a new cohort in November. Or if you've been thinking about it, or this presentation, our teachings today has called you in, you can begin by taking the Sacred Masculine Retreat starting in a couple of weeks and join this next certification cohort that would complete next year.
And I see Lopan Ellen commenting, thank you, Lopan, for watching. It's a wonderful teacher that's part of that course.
Yes, yes. So wonderful. So maybe just, is there any other questions before we dedicate the merit? Seeing some thank yous. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Oh, so wonderful. Looking forward to getting to know the Sacred Masculine. All right. Well, just taking a moment to dedicate the merit of our time together. You might think back to any moments of positivity or benefit in our time together, and dedicating that to the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be separated from the great bliss that is beyond all sorrow. And may all beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May it be so.
May it be so. Thank you all for your presence today.
Thank you all. Thank you, Chögé Lisa. And thank you to Matt and Jean.
Yes, thank you, Matt and Jean.
Thank you, Chögé Lisa and Chögé Bridget, for a really wonderful and stimulating conversation today, and for introducing us to these really rich and powerful practices and ways of working spiritually with such beautiful, profound images and energies. I found it really compelling, and I know I'm not alone. We've had some lovely comments. So on behalf of all of us present and all catching up afterwards, thank you. And thank you at home for your participation and support. Before we close today, I want to share some opportunities coming up that might be of interest. There's an opportunity to join today's Lama Live hosts, Chögé's Bridget Bailey and Lisa Erickson, along with Lopan Ellen Booth Church and Lama Tsultrim Alyone, in the upcoming Mandala Method journey into the Mandala of the Sacred Masculine, from October 17th through November 15th, for a powerful exploration of the Sacred Masculine in Tibetan Buddhism. Participants will discover why its presence is urgently needed today experience the guided mandala meditation, and learn how this work supports personal transformation and the Mandala Method Certification journey. Please mark your calendars also for the next Lama Lounge, an online gathering on October 19th. This is a special gathering for our Sustaining Sangha members, a wonderful and sacred space where we can connect more intimately as a community. The Lama Lounge will take place in our Sustaining Sangha group on Yana, which is Tara Mandala's digital Dharma hub. Also this fall, we're offering something really special, Simamukha, the lion-headed Dakini with Lama Tsultrim over 2 retreat weekends, starting on November 7th and concluding on November 23rd. Simamukha is known as a powerful remover of obstacles and queen of the Dakinis. She represents the transformation of anger into the clarity of mirror-like wisdom, making this practice especially valuable for those working with intense emotions. And starting October 24th, we have The Great Perfection. This is a 5-week journey running through November 21st and focuses on Dzogchen, which is considered one of the highest teachings of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. You'll be learning from an incredible lineup of teachers: Lama Tsultrim, Tulku Osul Dorje, Eric Pema Kunsang, and Adzum Gyaltse Rinpoche. Together, they'll guide you through profound practices for awakening to the nature of mind and discovering how recognition spontaneously benefits others. And if you've been following our Heart of Buddhism series all year, this is the beautiful culmination of that journey, though it also stands perfectly on its own. Each of these programs offers a different pathway into the profound wisdom of Tibetan Buddhism. And you can find all the details and registration on our program calendar at taramandala.org. You can follow Tara Mandala on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to stay up to date with our news, and join our mailing list to get updates straight into your inbox. Past episodes of Lama Live are stored on our YouTube channel, where you can revisit them at any time. Now, following the tradition going all the way back to the time of the Buddha 2600 years ago, you have the opportunity to make an offering of dana to Chögé Lisa and Chögé Bridget. Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word that means generosity. Offering dana creates an auspicious connection and is a beautiful expression of the interdependence between teacher and student. Dana directly recognizes the precious gift of the teacher and the teachings, without which one could not practice the Dharma. To offer dana, please follow the link in the chat now. And finally, we invite you to join us on October 26th for our next Lama Live with Lopan Chandra Easton, speaking about the 21 Taras. We are looking forward to that, and we hope to see you there. Goodbye.
Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re